QAnon followers who went to Dallas and were hoping that JFK would resurrect or at least show up out of nowhere were of course disappointed, but guess what? They're still in Dallas hoping that the day will come. And as funny as that might sound, there are family members of these people who are terrified for their loved ones and just want to do anything and everything to get them back home. So while they wait for their families, they're worried that their loved ones are too far gone. So Vice News reported on this. They found that hundreds of people initially traveled to Dallas to see JFK reappear on November 2nd. However, when that didn't happen, of course, as always, the goalpost shifted, and Michael Brian Protzman, known to his followers as -48, convinced dozens of people that if they just waited long enough, something else could happen. Okay, so very vague promise there. And unfortunately, it was enough to persuade people to stay. Now, they're still camping in Texas. They've left their families behind because they're waiting for something to happen. Katy Garner's sister is one such person. She says, Katy Garner left her children for this and doesn't even care. She is missing birthdays and holidays for this. She truly believes this is all real and we are the crazy ones for trying to get her to come home, but she won't. I don't believe she will ever come back from this. We are still mourning.
She left 3 kids behind. And so this is what happens in cults. And in fact, a lot of the language that they're using is very similar to the guy who killed 2 of his kids because he believed that all these conspiracy theories about how the government is capturing people and eating children, and it sounds absolutely insane because it is absolutely insane, but yet seemingly previously rational people fall into these cults. Now, look, it's easy to make fun of them, it's easy to deride them, and I have, to be honest. But we're trying to understand here so we can help them get out.
Yeah.
And so there's gonna be some uncomfortable truths in a minute, but let's give you more of the story.
Yeah, so there's this great Vox-produced series on Netflix right now about the human brain. It's especially great because they featured me in one of the episodes.
Indeed.
No, but honestly, it is a well-done series. And so check it out. It just came out. It's The Human Mind Explained. And the episode on cults not only features me a little bit, but it also, more importantly, includes experts who I think give the best advice, at least the best advice I've seen so far. The best thing you can do if you find yourself dealing with a family member who's been sucked in by QAnon is not to cut them off, not to push them aside as lunatics, but keep them in your life and keep them close and be friendly and kind to them. Because if you do cut them off, what ends up happening is they don't get the side of sanity. You know, that side of sanity in their lives gets taken away and all they're left with is the lunatic cult. Okay, and something that Nando said once, and it really resonated with me, is, human nature is a funny thing. When you care too much about something and you're fighting too hard to persuade someone of something, they're usually more likely to reject it.
Yeah, that's true.
Sometimes the best thing to do is just boop, plant that seed, walk away. And I don't mean walk away and never talk to them again, but if the topic comes up, plant the seed, continue to be kind, but don't belabor it, because the more you belabor it, the more likely it is that they'll reject it.
Yeah, well, look, that's why I tell you guys on the show, oftentimes folks will ask us for advice on how to talk to their right-wing uncle or their dad who now only watches Fox News and believes crazy things, etc. And I tell you guys to not do what I'm doing on air. Now, why?
And I agree with you on that.
And so there's logic in it, because here we're in the battlefield, right? And so it's important to explain to independents and to other folks, those other guys are cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Ain't nobody eating kids, that's nuts. There are no reptilians. And in this case, the sister is saying, yeah, the primary woman that they're talking about featured in this article, she started talking to us about how people are reptilian and the Democrats are eating babies. They literally believe that. So it's on me to call them nuts and crazy so that other people are not attracted to it. But for you guys in your personal lives, that's a totally different dynamic. You're not trying to win over independents. You're trying to win over someone you know. and calling them stupid or crazy isn't gonna help. And cutting them off definitely doesn't help. Because what's happening? The QAnon folks are in a sense cutting them off. They're becoming this tight-knit community, and the leader always says, I'm the only one who knows, do not listen to anyone else. Now here at TYT, we always tell you guys, double check what we're saying, because getting you more information doesn't hurt, it helps, because we're actually telling you things that are true. Those guys say, do not get information from anyone else, and if anyone tells you they're not reptiles, that means they are reptiles. So, so you have to be there to present alternate information, and do it in a loving way, so that you don't drive them accidentally away and into the arms of the guys that I can call nut jobs.
Now, and look, as much as I get frustrated with these types of stories as well, and I get tempted to do the name calling, like, I don't think we should be doing the name calling. Like, I think that you can lay out a case without the name calling. I
don't agree, and so I'll just say real quick, and then we'll get back to the topic at hand. So guys, the right wing called the left wing names for my entire life, for 40, 50 years here in America, and it totally worked.
Yeah, it appeals to right wing voters, yes, it works with right wing voters.
No, it worked with enough voters for them to win all these elections they had no business winning, when the polling indicated that they're deeply unpopular, right, on the issues. And so they called, when I was growing up, they called the left wing stupid all the time. And you know what? It even worked on me, which goes to the point of this story. Because you believe the things that you're brainwashed into. And we were all brainwashed when we were growing up in the 80s to think that, oh, if you're a liberal, you were a bleeding heart liberal who maybe was a good person, but was a knucklehead, right? And that was shown in the TV shows, that was shown in all the propaganda. So now, and that drove people away from being Democrats, and they drove them into the arms of Republicans. So I don't mind telling you that that their leaders are nuts, and believing that stuff is just not true. And yeah, you're not very bright if you think that that Democrats are eating kids. No, I'll tell you what they're really up to. They're up to making money. That's what politicians are up to. The powerful want to retain their power, and they are obsessed with power and wealth. They're not obsessed with lizards and eating things. Okay, so, but I mentioned how it's relevant to the story because, look, now this is the very hard truth. The overwhelming majority of them are deeply religious. And I can tell you from my experience, when I was growing up, I was told, like billions of people across the world, that our prophet talked to an invisible man in the sky. And the invisible man in the sky told him that he was the leader, and that everyone should listen to him, and that we should even listen to him 1,400 years later. And I believed it, because that's the only thing I was taught. And then when I read the books, and when I read science, and I opened my mind, I realized, no, he didn't talk to an invisible man in the sky. That's absurd.
So it wasn't atheists calling you stupid for believing those things that persuaded you?
No, it partly was, by the way. A lot of my friends were atheists, and they did call me stupid, and it did make me think, well, am I? And so I looked into it, and I read the text. I read the Bible, I read the Quran, but now most people don't, right? But so in this case, guys, once you believe that there is an invisible man in the sky that people talk to, it's much easier to get you to believe that -48 is talking to the invisible man in the sky, and he says everybody's reptiles. By the way, -48 says he does talk to the invisible man in the sky, and he's a true prophet. And they believe him because that's what they were trained to believe.
And look, he's really no different than a prosperity preacher, because while I don't know how wealthy he is, he's definitely using this to solicit donations from QAnon followers. So if you're wondering like what motivates these crazy people to brainwash innocent people into believing insane things, of course, it always goes back to money. So that's happening. I want to give some other examples, by the way. There are different examples, different people profiled in this Vice article. They give the example about one woman who spoke about her fiance who traveled to Dallas initially at the beginning of the month, returned home to Missouri, but returned to Dallas a week later after Protzman made another prediction. Now she's worried that her fiance may be lost to her for good. I keep asking him to come home, she says, and he keeps saying something big is going to happen and he doesn't want to miss it. A member of the Dealey Plaza Truthers group wrote, I have already thought that perhaps my fiance might be penniless if he stays with the group. I just hope they wake up before losing everything. So there are people who are emptying out their savings accounts to provide donations to Protzman, and just this massive grift that he's pulling off.
So here's another uncomfortable truth. And by the way, guys, I actually hate telling you this because I know a lot of you are wonderful religious people and you do so much good in the world. And by the way, those guys who talked to the invisible man in the sky also told people to help the poor and the needy. So there's some wonderful parts of religion, right? But when you look at this, who also waits for dead people to come back? Religious folks. So as a Muslim, when I was growing up, we're the third book according to Muslims. There's the Old Testament, the New Testament, and the Quran. And Muhammad is not coming back, Jesus is. We believe in the prophet Jesus. And so we thought, just like Christians do, that Jesus is coming back. So we say they're crazy for thinking JFK and JFK Jr. are coming back from the dead. And I know that a lot of you hate to hear this, and I know it makes you uncomfortable, and I feel bad saying it. But is it that different than the idea that a guy who lived 2,000 years ago is coming back? So once you let go of logic, there's nothing left. The string is gone. So I'm going to say something that should not be at all controversial. For God's sake, teach your children logic and reason. Get them to believe in facts and not superstition. So I know it'll fall on deaf ears, and I know some of you will be hurt by it, and I love you and I don't want you to be hurt by it. But logic matters. It's true. It's actually things that are true. And if you teach your kids, you teach everyone around you to believe in things that aren't remotely true, then you might be surprised at what else they believe in. And by the way, reptiles, where the hell did that come from? I mean, for us rational folks, people are actually secretly reptiles. It sounds so weird, and we can't fathom it. And even when I was religious, I wasn't very religious at all. I was secular, and then I got a little religious 1 year, etc. But I wasn't like neck deep in it.
You weren't eating pork, bro.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't eat bacon.
You weren't drinking in college. Like, he was pretty religious. Let's keep it real.
Okay,
yeah,
for that 1 year.
Trying to downplay it. Look at this guy trying to. I was pretty secular.
No. But I said it in the beginning. I believed it. I believed totally crazy things. I did, right? And so I didn't drink beer and I didn't eat bacon. I mean, not eating bacon for a guy like me. Okay, and pepperoni pizza, subs, they were all out because I thought that an invisible man talked to another man 1,400 years ago and he forbid it. I literally thought that. I mean, guys, when you say it out loud, you see what it sounds like. So where do the reptiles come from? Well, a lot of religious folks believe that there are demons in the world. And it doesn't matter what the religion is. I mean, the Muslims have jinns, right? The Christians have demons.
Didn't Eve get persuaded to eat the forbidden fruit by a serpent?
A reptile.
Right.
I wonder where they got it from. So look, I'm not telling you got to go all abandon your religions and follow us. Be careful of guys saying that, okay? We're giving you options here. And think it through. And please, for God's sake, research. Whether it's us or anyone else, look into it. Is it true that there's an army of reptiles walking around? Did anybody discover them?
I mean, in Florida, there's quite a bit, yes. No, really, like iguanas, it's an invasive species.
Yeah, and crocodiles and all those folks. But folks, see? But anyways, stay close to folks. Don't let them go. And of course, at the end, most of the time, it always comes back to the money. So this scammer, it tells them, no, you got to stay in Dallas. Well, in order to stay in Dallas, we need money, right? And so not only are they leaving their kids and their families behind, but they're emptying their bank accounts and giving it to the grifter. And it's the same grift. It's been going on for thousands of years. And so we've got to go to teaching logic and reason. Otherwise, we're all doomed, because you could substitute one superstition for another, almost any other, and you're seeing it with your own eyes right here with this QAnon cult. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.